This footage was captured between 2008 and 2010 and is one of the few that has something interesting to see. An internet user was observing the moon at midnight on one of the clear days that the Swedish country offers, when in the distance he saw a disturbing object that seemed to have wings passing very slowly across the main face of the moon. For the internet user, all this was very strange, since he did not expect a satellite or International Space Station to pass by the visible face of the moon at that time. After this event, the internet user managed to quickly record this strange occurrence to review it in more detail and what he would see next. He would read blood because it seemed like a gigantic mothership was passing over the lunar surface as if it were observing a place to land on the moon. The video was presented in several news outlets, but it did not have the media relevance that was expected in those years. It is well known that when NASA's first missions reached the moon, some strange things went unnoticed. In the direct conversations that were taking place at that time between the astronauts and the control base on Earth, certain descriptions of strange things came out unintentionally, and the scientists on the ground had the mission of giving another type of meaning to what the astronauts described at that time. And this footage can perfectly describe what an astronaut observes moments before reaching space and heading to the moon. But certain high-ranking officials on Earth sometimes tend to divert attention from what they see in space and give a scientific meaning to those mysterious things. The footage was recorded in 1982 during one of the manned Apollo missions to the moon. We were dumping out earlier, and yeah, it's a beautiful picture. And it's a combination of moonlight making those ice crystals sparkle maybe, as well as some of the sun starting to come up on the horizon. Thanks for the picture. Never mind. Are we missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think the camera filter is off. There are videos that need all the attention in the world and become part of a huge list of unexplained videos, where only the unknown can fuel a human opinion that doesn't usually make sense for a minimally logical explanation and sadly stagnates in what we call theories or possible conjectures. However, these videos turn out to be interesting and can guide us to have a deeper conception of the universe and the terrifying space that exists between us. So therefore they end up going viral, like this footage, which was captured from a homemade telescope on one of the coasts of California, and you can see a completely unknown object or hovering above the natural satellite. See for yourself. Oh! Or this other footage too, which is going viral worldwide and is terrifying due to its unknown nature. Who are its crew members, and with what objectives are they visiting our moon? I leave everything to your consideration. There are many videos about objects, so to speak, appearing on the moon or in its craters. Though, since today we already have an extensive amount of graphic tools that make all that possible down to the smallest detail that artificial intelligence can achieve. However, more than 30 years ago, all that was almost impossible, and even the internet had its limitations. For that reason, the video you are watching on the screen is considered one of the best proofs that things exist on the moon that we have never seen, and that only the most prepared astronauts who have managed to set foot on lunar soil know about it and have hidden it for a long time. Either by superior orders or perhaps by the very fact that humanity is not prepared to understand. The video was captured in 1996. And it is said that it belongs to one of the Apollo missions that reached the moon in those years. Much is said to this day about the successful Apollo X mission that managed to reach the moon carrying humans on board, historically becoming the first time that a human being set foot on another world outside of Earth. However, despite all the success of this mission, some people are still unaware of the chilling and strange things that this mission experienced upon reaching the moon. Some believe that this footage may have been edited to create more controversy around the Apollo X mission. On the other hand, renowned ufologists have claimed that the video is authentic and is part of the thousands of things that the astronauts of said mission saw as they approached the natural satellite. What do you think? This footage was recently captured and went viral around the world thanks to the internet. And although some say that it was made with artificial intelligence, there is no doubt that it resembles the characteristics of objects that American and Soviet astronauts saw when they were in space on their way to the moon in the last space race. However, the video shows an object with a strange shape emerging from a lunar crater and then disappearing on the horizon. And if you look closely, you will notice that the appearance of said object is quite similar to a story that Busaldan mentioned in one of his interviews when he was in lunar orbit. Definitely chilling. The world is full of mysteries. Mysteries, too, which are accompanied by film evidence that is always questioned about its veracity. Since today there is a good amount of technology that makes it possible to fake any video with good resolution, in order to make it something viral on the entire internet, with the aim of becoming famous or leaving a small mark on the world in which we live today. However, there is footage that could be considered as the needle in the bird due to its strange and at the same time impressive nature. Due to its cinematic quality and context full of mystery that makes our mind play with its own questioning to the point of knowing if it is true or not. And this is where our human intuition comes in, to uncover and separate fact from fiction. And sometimes it tends to get out of our logical understanding to become a nightmarish reality that we sometimes have to accept. Let everything said above serve to provide context for the video that I want to show you next. A footage of no more than 30 seconds has been circulating on the internet for a few days now, where you can clearly see how an object of considerable dimensions seems to be emerging from a lunar crater to slowly navigate above it until it disappears into the horizon. It is said that the video in question was recorded in Norway by an amateur astronomer, and the video quality and resolution of the footage itself is totally impressive. However, there are several hypotheses about the video, since some mention that it was recorded from Russia and others from the United States of America. But the nature of it, if true, shows us a latent reality about the objects that visit our natural satellite today. Who knows with what real objectives? Furthermore, we must be objective and ask ourselves about what could be inside the lunar craters, which, to date, we know are of considerable dimensions. And apart from that, the total darkness of these objects can help these objects or ships hide in the shadows so as not to be seen at all and leave evidence on the natural satellite. It is worth noting that this is not the first time that an object of these dimensions has been captured emerging from a lunar crater, as there are several videos that demonstrate it, and it makes us wonder what is happening on the moon. What is the attraction of those gigantic metallic objects? During its time on our natural satellite, the Chinese space agency's Robert 2 has been exploring the far side of the Moon since the beginning of 2019 as an essential part of the Chang'e 4 mission. During its stay on our natural satellite, its main cameras recently spotted an enigmatic cube-shaped structure on the dark horizon of the Moon, which scientists in the Asian Giant have nicknamed the Mysterious House. Unlike NASA, which has long been reluctant to explore anomalies photographed by its robotic explorers, the Chinese Space Agency team plans to fly over and take a closer look at the detected object, as NASA 2's view of the mystery object is somewhat blurry and distant, so the true nature of the object itself should become clearer as Robert approaches. However, the most likely explanation scientists are considering is that it could be an unusually shaped lunar rock that appears to resemble a well-formed cube, thus creating an optical illusion due to distance or image quality, as this part of our satellite is pockmarked with impact craters that can contain quite a few thick pieces of debris. However, some theorists also argue that it could be some kind of very old lunar object from a past mission belonging to the space race that peaked in the 70s. This video is very little known since it was uploaded to the platform more than 5 years ago, Weka. But the user who owns the footage describes it as a rounded object that passed in front of the Moon while he was making an observation video. He warns us from the outset that the possibility that it is a bird or an airplane is completely ruled out. It is possibly space junk, since it is not visible in solar panels like in other types of satellites, but the rounded shape of that mysterious object gives a lot to be said. The video that you will see below was uploaded to the channel that you are watching on the screen. However, if you try to access the video today, it will appear that the footage is not available. The reasons for this may be very varied, but only the user who owns the channel should have the most valid one. The video shows a mysterious ovoid-shaped object that appears to be passing in front of the natural satellite. There are many theories surrounding this video, ranging from possible Starlink satellites from the SpaceX company to the possibility that they could be alien visitors. Judge for yourself. This video went viral a few years ago, all thanks to the famous YouTuber known as Dross Roxon. The footage itself belongs to the YouTube channel Security 10, and you can see something truly impressive. The user of this channel was focusing on a sector of our natural satellite, when suddenly and without warning, he saw something that would practically leave him speechless. I hope you notice it at first glance. What could that mysterious object be that is slowly peeking out from inside that dark lunar crater? Imagine that you have a spacesuit and you can descend into that lunar crater. What would you come across in there? Something definitely chilling. Many theories have even been put on the big screen about the dark side of the moon, where it is said that human beings have found something truly spectacular that is beyond our logical understanding, and that evidently the governments of the most powerful nations in the world have done everything possible to censor that valuable information. It is not known for sure if this is really true, but what we can be sure of is the little information we have about the dark side of the moon. Therefore, several theorists on the subject have already speculated about possible secret bases and even very ancient ruins that would demonstrate the existence of something or someone inhabiting our natural satellite many thousands of years ago. Whether it is true or not, the truth is that it is something really interesting, and as human beings, we must be open to any type of possibility. Although today everything can be considered false due to the enormous amount of graphic tools that artificial intelligence allows us to use, just 1 or 2 decades ago, that was completely unthinkable because back then the internet was used to search for relevant information, as well as educational videos that aimed to teach the population about a specific topic. That is why any video that goes viral on social media is now heavily criticized for the simple fact that it was made with artificial intelligence, and the information it intended to communicate becomes secondary or irrelevant to the point of sometimes being ridiculed or simply forgotten in the extensive archives of the network. However, in 2004, when the internet was becoming very important in our daily lives, certain stories accompanied by incredible footage for the time began to take center stage on platforms that are now forgotten, but which at that time were the social networks of the time. And although YouTube had not yet been fully launched to everyone, there were incredible footages that could hardly be faked or created with some graphic tool. Well, information from that era about space issues and secret missions was taken seriously. Pobua, since we were coming from a previous era in which NASA and other space agencies had just won the space race. This could be the case of a totally mysterious mission that NASA blindly hides to this day, since it has never confirmed the existence of such a mission to the dark side of the moon. However, the same was said about Area 51, where previous governments completely denied the existence of said base to the point of it being considered a conspiracy theory. But it must be remembered that years later the existence of said secret military base was accepted, making past governments aware that the Pentagon is hiding things about other worlds and other life forms, according to former military personnel who worked and were part of said missions. We are talking about the Apollo X mission to the moon, which traveled to the natural satellite, but this time with a completely different destination. The mission's objective was to land on the dark side of the moon, that is, the side that we cannot see from Earth, but that is permanently illuminated by sunlight. It is known that this mission, according to several confidential documents, made several flybys before dying completely, and when they saw their target for the first time, these astronauts were quick to show their astonishment, because what was so much talked about on Earth, and that was a state secret, turned out to be completely true. To begin with, the Apollo 20 spacecraft successfully landed near a lunar plain and then continued with the mission towards a structure abandoned for millions and millions of years. It was a gigantic alien spacecraft abandoned and embedded in lunar soil as if it belonged to another world. According to the crew members, the ship had absolutely colossal dimensions and was made of a completely rigid material, but it was not iron or metal, but something like a kind of compressed solid rock, but at the same time manipulable and very resistant. After seeing this impressive ship, which from the beginning was their main objective on the dark side of the moon, the astronauts proceeded to explore inside the ship with layers and layers of security in addition to the astronaut suits. According to the accounts of one of the Apollo 20 team, it was somewhat complicated to break down the main door as it was trapped in a lunar rock. But after several attempts with TNT and cables pulled by Robert Lunaris, they finally managed to enter the ship. It was all a very smooth corridor, with large mirrors and an echo that simply made hearing the murmurs of our team give us an unbearable feeling of what we could see when we opened that door that was in front. These were some of the words that the biologist astronaut was able to say at the moment they were inside the ship. Moments after opening the main door to enter the cockpit, several of the astronauts panicked, because in the pilot's seat and 3 meters next to it lay 3 humanoid bodies completely mummified by time. One of the astronauts, who was the group's biologist, quickly regained his composure and began to analyze the bodies in detail, and stated that at that time the three bodies belonged to female beings, but that they did not have human DNA, nor did they have any genetic traits that could be similar to any primate or other known species. So after that, the rest of the team began to remove the bodies to place them in special bags and containers typical of an advanced laboratory. But unfortunately for the mission, one of the bodies, which appeared to belong to the co-pilot, would quickly disintegrate due to all the time it had been inside the ship. So the two remaining bodies were carefully removed, but the surprise was that the pilot's body was intact in the sense that it had undergone a clean mummification process. That is to say, it retained its color, its extremities, and its entire body structure, so it was easy to transfer its body to the Apollo X ship. However, what would happen to the third body was described as an accident. Why? Since while they were removing the remains of what appeared to be its control cabin, its head became detached from its entire bone structure, and they were only able to transfer part of it. But the captain, or what they called the Mona Lisa of that abandoned ship, was completely transferred to the Apollo X module and later taken to Earth to a special laboratory, also before abandoning that ship that was only ruins, of what had once been a powerful and technologically advanced ship. The Apollo team also found a type of golden bracelet and several notes written on a highly resistant material in a language completely unknown to humans. So after taking all of that to the Apollo X spacecraft, the biologist and the mission doctor were able to conclude that the three humanoid figures perished due to the lack of oxygen that completely escaped through a large opening in one of the ship's doors when it crashed on the moon. Carbon-14 samples showed that they were approximately 240 Earth years old when they impacted the moon. They were also able to conclude that the colossal ship had been in that location for 2 million years, further deepening the mystery surrounding these beings and what could have happened to them when they reached the natural satellite. So the team, after achieving their goal and subsequently transferring the remains found, set off for Earth to take the remains to a high-security laboratory. And what they concluded after that is a total mystery that only exists in theories. Although the most impressive one dictates that those women, in quotes, would be part of a planetary army located 50 light-years from Earth, which is responsible for watching over the primitive life of the habitable planets that exist within a stellar radius of 100 light-years, waited until the moment of approaching Earth. In those years, when the last ice age was being experienced, something went wrong with that colossal ship, and they had no choice but to make an emergency landing on the moon. But the speed was so great that they ended up crashing, perishing instantly 2 million years ago. It is also said that that humanoid race is immeasurably more advanced than ours. And if 2 million years ago they had that technology, now they must be on their way to colonize other galaxies in the universe, and we simply cease to be an important target for them. The most impressive thing about this story is that it features photos and videos exclusively revealed by NASA itself, which has not denied the existence of something incredible on the natural satellite. It is no coincidence that in the 80s and 90s, they sent a large number of probes and spacecraft to the hidden side of the moon, and suddenly, without further notice, stopped exploring the moon on the 26th. They sent humans back in the program known as Artemis. You can even visit the official NASA website and see the gallery of photographs where the spacecraft would have been embedded in lunar soil to date. And although it is an unusual and hard-to-believe case, there is photographic evidence, as we have already said. And the success of knowing something about the universe is expanding your mind and all the possibilities, because in the universe, everything is possible and everything could happen. And regarding the writing found right with the alien bodies, it is known that they tried to decipher it with the help of several linguists of ancient languages, but they were unsuccessful, since that language seems to be linked to an alien race that would use some dimensional plane to travel between planets, since the bracelet became part of the secret objects that live guarded in Area 51. according to several members of that mission that brought the Mona Lisa to Earth.